It is Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And, as far as jiu-jitsu goes, I don't even know what the fuck happened today. I tried to log in for the virtual aspect of it, and it didn't seem like there was anybody there. Waited and waited and waited, and nobody answered. Posted something on my message board for my my class or my school, and haven't seen any response on it yet. It's still up there, so yeah, I have no idea what's going on with my jiu-jitsu, but I don't know. I'm worried. I'm concerned. Normally there's usually at least a warning if there's nobody teaching a class, so and that hasn't happened before, so I'm like I said, I'm a little concerned. I mean, I'm still part of the group, so I don't think anything has changed there, but yeah, very concerning. Hopefully this isn't hopefully this is because they started teaching regular classes again and they just forgot to post it or something. I would like to think that that's the case, or I would like to hope that that's the case. But I don't know. If I don't hear back from them today or whatever, I'm probably going to have to start looking for some place to train. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. I mean, I will say this. I am behind on my bill, so for all I know, it's just something to do with that, and that's fine. I mean, they're probably having as much trouble as anybody else at this point in time. But to my knowledge, they haven't been teaching regular classes, so I don't know. It's 50 of 51, and I don't know, 50 of the other. Anyway, as far as what we're going to get into today, very disappointed, gotta say. I even just watching the people that are in my jiu-jitsu class and that I do class with, just seeing them continuing on with their study is it means something to me. And so, like I said, not being able to at least tune in, it's very disappointing, especially after training with these people for as long as I have. Just kind of no warning or anything like that, just for whatever reason, just it doesn't happen. But honestly, I've never felt that the live streaming was the best medium. It is a temporary stopgap measure. It's something you do when you're fumigating your fucking dojo and you can't have people in there this week or something like that. But I mean, come on, 3 months. It's time to get back to it, I think. But again, that it's not my business, so I feel kind of weird saying anything about it. It's like how people choose to govern their own affairs and whatnot. You kind of got to leave it to them, except where it applies to you, and then where it's interfering with your progress. And so yeah, I don't know where to go with that, but I'm gonna go somewhere, I'm sure. Anyways, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And I want to go ahead and open it up with body count. We avoided doing that before last time, but I feel like it's tradition, and so we just got to go back to it. And as far as which song to play, though, that's always the question. And I've been watching this Seattle Autonomous Zone business, and I've got to say it was probably very ill-conceived to begin with, and to me it's more demonstration of the fact that the cities and states were not able to fund their fucking mandate. They were not able to fund their budget. They drew up all kinds of expectations of what they hoped to bring in with tobacco taxes and excise taxes and gas taxes and property taxes and fees and licenses and registrations and all that shit. They thought that, hey, we're going to be able to impose all of this crap on the public, and everything is going to be wonderful. We're going to be able to fund everything that we want to do. We're going to be able to fund our public education. We're going to be able to fund police. We're going to be able to fund public schools. We're going to be able to fund all of this stuff on the tax burden that we're going to impose on everybody. And where we're unable to do it, we'll borrow it from somewhere else and hope that someday it'll be producing enough income that we'll be able to be paying back, and it'll be a cash positive as opposed to a simple cost. And the problem with this is it doesn't fucking work. I give you a perfect example. Hatcheries. Personally, I'm offended by the existence of hatcheries because they imply that nature can't produce fish. This is not true. Nature is perfectly capable of producing fish. It's that we won't let nature produce fish. Because if there's enough fish out there, you might go and fish for yourself, and then what am I, Mr. Commercial Fisherman, going to do? I can't tax you for the existence of a fish that existed before I existed. But now that I'm a primary stakeholder in all of this, I get to tell you what you get to do with the fish. That's what hatcheries mean to me. It's like this. Like, say you introduce the fish that you're producing in your hatchery into a perfectly operating biosphere. Okay, it's got just the number of adult fish in it that it can sustain with the forage base that it's able to sustain. And there's a whole series of niches that develop in any kind of aquatic biome. Some of them are in the water, some of them are at the water and land surface, and then some of them are on the land. But they're all interacting, and they're all necessary for that biomesh to be happening. And so when you introduce something that particular area did not produce on its own, you create an imbalance. And in some cases, this can be desirable. But the problem is, up here in Oregon, we can produce trout really quickly. Not as quickly as most people can fill up a stringer, but pretty quickly. And see, it takes time to cultivate a proper trout fishery. But instead of being patient about it, the solution they thought up was, okay, let's create trout that don't breed, so we don't have to worry about them breeding with our native population and diluting the gene pool. And we're going to introduce them into the water at the same time that the native fish are doing their spawn. And see, what ends up happening is that as soon as the eggs hatch for the natives, the planters go and suck them all up. And so you create a big divot in that biome where you're constantly having to throw these non-reproducing fish back into it. Otherwise, it doesn't have a fishery, because the fish that you're introducing have consumed most of the natural biome, other than themselves, of course, because they're too big to fit in the mouth. And because of this dearth of fish, because there's no fish there, people bitch, and they're willing to pay for fish to be introduced there. And after a while, it gets to the point where the fishery itself isn't really capable of sustaining a natural populace, much less the fish that you're putting into it. And that's really where you end up, is because at some point or another you have to stop throwing fish into it. You just can't afford it. After a while, people get sick of catching fish that don't really have any natural instincts and don't really taste like natural fish, and in the long run only end up being a line item on a budget that can be phased out at any time. And so we're having this problem with salmon. And we've been having this problem progressively for the last probably 2, 3, 4 decades. where we've tried to replace salmon runs, natural salmon runs, with hatchery fish. And the problem with that is that A, they do procreate with the native fish, and it does dilute the gene pool. But it's one of those things where if the hatchery ever stops functioning, if they ever have a reason why they can't afford the hatchery, that run goes away. Period. I mean, you might have a few scraggly native fish here and there, and they might rebuild the populace on their own, assuming, of course, you're not throwing rainbow trout in there at adult size to eat them all up as minnows. Assuming you're not doing that, they will rebuild the run. But, of course, they have to have places to spawn. And this is another place where hatcheries are a big pain and do actually hurt nature. Is because the hatchery was creating the illusion that the river is capable of sustaining a run. But once you take that hatchery away, if that was the only place where the fish could come from, because you filled in all the sloughs and all the creeks and all the other things that dumped into that river originally, you've left no natural place for them to spawn. Now the river cannot sustain a run. And this happened throughout Southern California, as a matter of fact, throughout California in general, because they weren't thinking that far in advance. And if you look at those river channels today, some of them still exist, but they're very underutilized. You know, when I look at them, I think this could be sustaining multiple runs of fish. This could be providing electricity to everybody throughout the Los Angeles County, because the river's going to be there. I mean, obviously they couldn't get rid of it because it's still there. It's about the only patch of land that isn't covered with fucking cement or asphalt. And I was looking at this map on Google Maps the other day, and there's a couple places where I think it would be a little more challenging than my imagination can come up with. But when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, you know, if I were to make some really deep channels that would accumulate enough water to put some water pressure behind it, I could probably line this with turbines and create natural habitat for both fish and non-aquatic, or non-fish life, nature in general, right? It could be done. Just a little bit of will. Dig some ditches a little deeper. And so, you know, when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, you know, those are the kinds of changes that we really need in going forward, because, you know, nuclear has its own issues, oil has its own issues. About the only thing that has zero carbon footprint, or virtually zero, is hydro. And I really think that if we were to go about hydro the way I'm considering it, the idea of building dams for hydroelectricity would go away. Because if anything, the dams create interruptions in the river flow, and that cuts down on the amount of water pressure that you have, and so on and so forth. However, if you build your dam properly, it just becomes a pool that you can manage the depth of. It doesn't create any interruptions for nature, and it doesn't create any interruptions for the river itself. And so, like I was saying, I was looking at the Santa Ana River the other day down in Los Angeles County, and like if I had like carte blanche, you know, if Elon Musk just said, all right, here's the checkbook, make this thing happen, that's pretty much what I would do. I'd buy the entire riverbed of the Santa Ana River, where it dumps into whatever bay it dumps into. I think it's LA Harbor. We're, you know, starting there, and just buy every square foot of fucking real estate from there to the nearest lake and the dam itself, if at all possible, and make this kind of adjustment that I'm talking about. Like I said, you could probably generate enough electricity to run the entirety of Los Angeles County just off that river channel alone. And that's by making it back into a natural river. Well, not necessarily natural, but certainly flowing like one, or at least more than is currently the case. But anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music, and I want to go with Body Count. Ski Mask Way, here on Coin Metal. And that was Killing Joke with Loose Cannon. And so, as far as where we're going to go today on what we're going to cover, I got some stuff here, and it seems like people tend to forget the primary use of cryptocurrencies is supposed to be as money. However, they do serve to provide remittances and other stuff like that. The problem that we run into with crypto is the same with any other custody service, that if you do start any kind of relationship with a third party, that your business suddenly becomes subject to their terms as well as yours and whatever business partners you may get into. And this itself could burden you with other third-party risk. And this is one of the reasons why Bitcoin was created, to operate as it does. But, this is a lesson. We've had it multiple times in crypto. We're going to have it multiple times more, because people don't seem to get this, and it seems like governments and certain media entities don't do enough to promote the mimetic, make it clear, and so after a while you have to ask yourself if it's just a matter of oversight or misunderstanding or maliciousness. And given the fact that we're talking about money, I always wager towards maliciousness, because we are talking about something that can be diverted just as easily to somebody specific's interest without your desire or knowledge. And that's never a position you really want to be in. Anyway, so I got this thing. It's on Cointelegraph.com. Chinese stakeholders don't want to share their personal data with government-run blockchains. And this is by Ting Peng. And going by the picture, I'm going to say no. No penis. Chinese local governments hit a bump in the road with implementing blockchain applications because stakeholders don't want to share their data. Scrolling. Chinese local governments are facing difficulties when implementing blockchain applications due to stakeholders' unwillingness to share their privately owned data, according to a local report on June 10th. Data is king. According to the investigation, there are more than 30 related local governments procuring blockchain technology. Their aim is to leverage blockchain to build management platforms that improve local administrative and social governance capabilities. Some of these projects have been forced to shut down in under 2 years, according to the news, due to lack of supporting data. The reason? Many stakeholders refuse to share their personal data. Zhang Desheng, a staff member who participated in a local government blockchain project, told the news that, quote, because there was no clear policy framework, government staff had obstacles in the process of communicating with stakeholders. The data needed for the blockchain management platform involves local banking, insurance, telecommunications, and other departments. Some departments were willing to provide data, while others were not. Pay for the data. Yang Meng, Vice President of China Digital Asset Research Institute, agreed that, quote, information barrier has brought great challenges to the implementation of blockchain technology. Meng explained that this resistance is problematic because, for these blockchains to succeed, data is everything. He believes no government sectors nor private enterprises would be willing to, quote, donate their data for free, and then put these data on a chain where everyone can see it. He suggested data owners should be paid when their data is requested. As Cointelegraph reported previously, Hoskinson believed that people have had enough of old world institutions controlling their financial accounts, data, and identity. Goddamn right. And I don't believe that resistance is going to change just because you're putting it in quote-unquote blockchain technology. And I mean, I bag on it because what they're talking about with regard to blockchain could be anything. It could be a shared database between monolithic government entities or corporate entities even working as proxies for government entities. And so again, it's like, why do I need to trust you people again? I mean, it's obvious to me. Obvious. It's made plain to me every single day how you intend to use this data, and it's not to my advantage. And so the idea that I'm going to willingly participate in what I know are most certainly going to be malicious ends that the data is put to and uses that it's put to, why would I willingly walk into the trap? And especially because I can just as easily avoid it. And I think that's one of the things that we keep tripping over and over and over again, is that no matter what, and as a matter of fact, I think I heard this in a Suicidal Tendencies song. It's what is it? You have control no matter how hard you try to give it away. I mean, really, think about that. You have control no matter how hard you try to give it away. And so it's like we're constantly presented these different options of handing over our control, and then we find out that it's going to be used in ways that don't advantage us, and then we deviate from those systems, and then we're back to square one again, where we've got all the control in the world, all the freedom in the world, and no idea what to actually do with it. And reverting back to systems where we're handing that control off to third parties to make up our minds for us. But invariably, they make decisions that don't benefit us and only benefit them. So, yeah. Gotta look out for your own bunghole, because if you don't, somebody else is going to be using your money to look out for theirs. That's all there is to it. Anyway, I got this thing here. It's on Cointelegraph.com. Benjamin Pyrrhus. So yes, penis. Coinbase unveils USDT custody, then deletes announcement. Coinbase Custody, an international institutional cryptocurrency holdings arm of well-known U.S. exchange Coinbase, announced compatibility for stablecoin Tether, USDT, only to delete traces of the announcement shortly thereafter. Coinbase Custody, as well as Tether CTO Powell Arduino, unveiled a USDT listing on the Coinbase platform in May 30th tweets, according to CoinDesk reporting on June 10th. The tweets have since been deleted at some point between their posting and the June 10th report. We will update as further details come in. I think that's kind of interesting that they should say, oh yeah, we're going to support USDT, but oh no we're not. But it could relate to something like this, and it's on news.bitcoin.com, and this one's by Jamie Redman. So yes, penis. Poloniex Bittrex named in lawsuit involving the alleged Tether-fueled crypto pump. More like Bitfinex, not Bittrex. On April 3rd, the cryptocurrency community learned about 11 class action lawsuits against various executives and digital asset companies. The law firm that filed the lawsuits is also involved in a class action lawsuit against Tether and Bitfinex for allegedly manipulating the price of Bitcoin. On June 4th, the plaintiffs and the litigation firm Rochus Cyrulnik, my apologies there, Friedman, added the trading platforms Bittrex and Poloniex to the defendant list. Plaintiffs Pinchas Goldstein, Benjamin Leibowitz, Jason Leibowitz, Matthew Script, and Aaron Leibowitz are suing Ifinex, the parent company of Tether and Bitfinex. The lawsuit was announced last year, and the plaintiffs are represented by the same lawyers that recently filed 11 class action suits against certain crypto companies and executives. Alongside this, the law firm represents the claimant estate in the case versus Craig Wright as well. Gosh, these guys are just trying to clean up on fucking legal fees. According to the recent filing against Ifinex, through the use of the exchange Bitfinex and using Tether, the four firms allegedly created a, quote, sophisticated scheme that co-opted a disruptive innovation, cryptocurrency, and used it to defraud investors, manipulate markets, and conceal illicit proceeds. Part fraud, part pump and dump, and part money laundering, the scheme was primarily accomplished through two enterprises, the lawsuit states, referring to the exchange and popular stablecoin USDT. The amendment to the case filed on Wednesday implicates Poloniex and Bittrex as well. The claim is that all the named defendants took part in a scheme and helped manipulate the price of Bitcoin. The case was originally filed in October of 2019, and the plaintiffs are seeking a whopping $1.4 trillion before punitive or treble damages. Wow. The latest filings suggest that Poloniex and Bittrex ostensibly used wallets that were created specifically to launder large amounts of USDT. Quote, given the size and regularity of these transfers through a mechanism they created for that exact purpose and their perfect visibility into the transactions, Bittrex and Poloniex knew the manipulative effect of the transactions on their exchanges. The updated court filing highlights. The plaintiffs further allege, quote, for otherwise peripheral exchanges, these large trades of purportedly fiat-backed USDT created an impression of legitimacy and consumer trust, leading to further trades and fees for the two exchanges. Financial columnist Danny Nelson spoke with a Bitfinex and a Tether representative who said that the accusations were not tied to facts. Quote, the lawsuit is untethered to either the facts or the law, Stuart Honegger explained to Nelson. The plaintiffs conflate perceived correlation with causation in an effort to prop up theories that are untrue and unsupportable, he added in an emailed statement. Just recently, news.bitcoin.com spoke with Roche's Cyrulnik Friedman partner Kyle Roche in an in-depth interview about the crypto cases his firm has filed in the last 2 years. What do you think about Poloniex and Bittrex being added to the Ifinex lawsuit? Number one, I don't think that either one were involved. Maybe Poloniex. There was some question about their scammery, flim-flammery. But the thing about Bittrex is this, that they operated with a FinCEN operative or lawyer or whatever, observer in their midst, or NYDFS. It might have been NYDFS. An auditor and shit in their midst for 4 years while they were applying for a bit license, of which they never actually received, from what I understand. But nonetheless, they were under the scrutiny of auditors and regulators for 4 fucking years. If what they were doing was really untoward, it probably would have been caught by those fucking auditors. So, yeah. And basically, when I read about that case, and they were denied over 2 questions about the legitimacy of some funds, and it was with 2 accounts, and they were able to account for both of them. So it's like, Anyway, when looking at it, it really seems like the law was used to basically just keep Bittrex out of the New York State, basically. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know how to read that one. As far as the association with Bittrex, I don't buy it. I think that basically it's institutional lawyers, or lawyers operating on behalf of institutional players, and they're just trying to take down competition within crypto. What they don't seem to understand is most of those exchanges just started up from fucking volunteers. The original Bitcoin exchanges and crypto exchanges, they were repurposed websites. They had originally been one thing, and then they got repurposed into being exchanges. And as far as like the page layouts and whatnot for that type of website, they're relatively standardized. If you look at any of the smaller exchanges, you can see page elements that you find on any of the quote-unquote legitimate exchanges. So that tells you they're just using the same things. They're bringing the frames in and the formatted pages basically into their server and creating another exchange. And this is going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. The stank of legitimacy on an exchange doesn't really mean what it means in legacy markets. It's more akin to like a message board or a chat room or something like that, in that it serves the function, and it serves it well enough that basically you have to be operating as an asshole to make people go away. You have to abuse their trust in some way to make them go away. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing in crypto, where people have been able to keep out other people via AML, KYC, and shit like that. That people are just adapting and getting into it via other means. And because there is no inherent age limit on who can run what software, and there never will be, by the way, at least none that is effectual. As long as that's the case, people who are technically quote-unquote underage are going to be getting in on these markets. As a matter of fact, I heard about this recently, and I can't remember which social media platform I saw it on, but basically the person was saying that their 10-year-old nephew was trading on Robinhood. Can you imagine that? That shit, I think that really started with crypto, because originally there was no age limit on who could participate. And I was seeing, 14 and 15-year-olds on my fucking Twitter feed showing off the Lambo that they bought, that they're not even able to drive yet because they're not legally of age. And, I think that kind of wealth transfer is going to be transpiring more and more and more. And it's going to come back into crypto too. I think they're going to find a way to place some sort of age limitations on who can download certain apps, and maybe even go a little bit farther in the way that they inhibit people using their apps, such as accessing the fucking camera to make sure that it's an adult who's holding the phone or device. But I think that in the longer term, the fact that they're keeping a potential customer base out of the market is really going to mean more to them than whether or not they're children. They're going to be saying, hey, that child is slinging some dick. He's got a 6-figure portfolio. I think I want to make some money off of his trading fees. You know, not going to be all discriminatory about it, you know. And those kids are going to be kicking it up, making it in crypto. You know, and that's assuming, of course, that they ever kick them off of Robinhood, which I don't believe they will. And for that reason, it's going to be like, look, they can either trade on this regulated exchange, and we are regulated, we do have our licenses and all that bullshit. They can either trade here, or they can be trading on the dark web. What do you want? You know, do you want it in a place where you can get some sort of metadata off of it, or do you want it in some fucking server in Uzbekistan or Serbia or something that you have no access to, you have no control over? You know? And I think that's the longer term view that people are going to have to start taking about finance. Because, I mean, I've said that multiple times on this show, that it's like you can squeeze in one place, but that volume doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it still exists, if not increases. You know, the resistance that you put on the market causes it to push back even harder. So it's like, okay, at one point or another, I mean, it's just, you got fucking society collapsing around you. At one point or another, you're going to let that energy express on the markets in a way that's making money for those people, or you're going to continue to enjoy this shit. Because you're enjoying the alternative of their participation, their active participation in the market, as either suppliers or manufacturers or processors or PR people or, you know, whatever. They are missing from the economy, and that energy is going somewhere else. And so, like I said, it's like you can continue to resist it. You know, put all your limitations on who can get a bank account and keep them out of the market. But as long as you're doing that, that energy is not on an order book somewhere. It's not participating in the market, creating value for you or anybody else. Least of all the person who we're talking about in particular. And again, that's one of those things that extends quote-unquote inequities, is when we're putting limitations on people based on where they live or who they are, so on and so forth. And I think extending that to just another group here or there it's fucking stupid, because it just perpetuates the same cycle. It's like, okay, you've handed the shit to me, I'm going to hold the shit for as long as I can hold the shit, and then I'm going to try and put it in somebody else's hand as quickly as I possibly can. You know, I haven't actually done anything about where else to put the shit so it doesn't end up in anybody's hand. I'm just handing the shit off to somebody else. And again, that doesn't actually solve anything. Eventually you got to dig a hole and dump the fucking turd in it instead of just handing it off. Let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And as far as where to go, I think this one's good enough. Machine Head, 1,000 Lies, here on Coin Metal. And that was Soundgarden with Outshined. And so, as far as where we're going to go next, I got some stuff here I wanted to bring up. Let me dredge around here. Here we go. You know, because we're on the question of custody and, like, who exactly should be entrusted to do that. And I can't remember who it was, whether it was and I think it's the owner of the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange. Backed is actually, I guess, like a subsidiary of them or some shit like that. I don't know, like, what the relationship is. It's either the NYSE or the Dow, one of those two. Like the mother corporation that owns them owns Backed. Anyway, continuing on. Got this thing. It's on cryptoglobe.com. Galaxy Digital and Backed join forces to launch a Bitcoin trade and custody service. Okay. And this is by Slarnak Maznavi. Siarnak. My apologies. So yes, penis. And this is authored on June 10th, 2020. On Wednesday, June 10th, Galaxy Digital and Bakkt announced that they are partnering to, quote, launch a collaborative white glove service for asset managers looking to acquire and build positions in and store Bitcoin. Galaxy Digital is the crypto-focused merchant bank founded and headed by Bitcoin bull and former Goldman Sachs partner Mike Novogratz. It's headquartered in New York City, but it also has offices in San Francisco, London, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and the Cayman Islands, registered office, and New Jersey. Bakkt is the crypto custodian and Bitcoin derivatives exchange subsidiary of the Intercontinental Exchange, ICE. Bakkt was announced by ICE on August 3rd, 2018. Actually, they'd been announced way before then, but due to regulatory issues, they didn't actually launch until August of 2018. Bakkt serves its institutional customers via the Bakkt warehouse and the Bakkt Bitcoin futures and options contracts. The joint press release stated that Galaxy Digital Trading, GDT, Galaxy Digital's affiliate, is, quote, providing market access and trading capabilities while qualified custodian Bakkt warehouse, which is regulated by the New York State Department of Financial Services, NYDFS, is, quote, safeguarding digital assets for clients. It went on to say that this direct connectivity between Galaxy Digital and Bakkt enables the two companies to offer clients best-in-class efficiency through the enterprise process of onboarding, trade execution, and storage of their digital assets. Tim Plakis, head of sales at Galaxy Digital Trading, had this to say, quote, we designed this partnership to service the uptick in demand and our two firms have received from traditional asset managers seeking assets to physical Bitcoin. Why? Why do I need you to access physical Bitcoin? Well, for one thing, physical Bitcoin doesn't actually exist. It's all digital. Continuing on, quote, these funds expect the same caliber of market knowledge and trade execution expertise in BTC as they would expect from any established traditional finance desk, and Galaxy provides that, while Bakkt delivers the high level of regulatory compliant security required for storing digital assets. Whatever. I can manage the same level of security they can with a piece of paper. Continuing on. Together, Galaxy Digital and Bakkt offer a safe, efficient, and well-regulated route into physical Bitcoin access, one that is already proven successful in the macro hedge fund space. Quote, asset managers and hedge funds considering this service can be assured by the high standards we hold as a publicly traded company with audited public financial statements and an institutional-sized balance sheet. And John Connolly, head of custody business development at Bakkt, said, quote, alongside our adoption of safekeeping requirements that are unique to the digital asset class and its infrastructure, the Bakkt warehouse uses the same best-in-class trusted enterprise security framework that protects ICE's dozen exchanges around the world, including the New York Stock Exchange. Quote, as one of the largest trading operations in the digital space, Galaxy Digital's execution expertise and Bakkt's custody solution are highly complementary. I don't really trust these guys. You know, the fact of the matter is these are the same people that are involved in corrupting our legacy markets. I mean, why do you think people come to crypto? It's to escape people like this. And, their promises of regulatory compliance are, again, not any kind of badge of security as far as I'm concerned. You're talking about the people who write the rules for who can do what. So it's like, it's kind of an efficient way of doing market capture, where you're both setting the standard and writing the standard, and hoping this, or trying to enforce the standard on others through state regulatory bodies. And I think it's a really dangerous position for anybody to be in. I think if they were to be judged on this level against like the old antitrust laws here in the United States, they would be booted out. Goldman Sachs would be booted out of a lot of finance because they manage way too much assets, and they're contaminating way too many markets. But I expect, because of the properties of crypto, I expect there is going to be a massive fuck up that takes up all these motherfuckers that think they're controlling the market and whatnot. They're going to have a rude awakening as far as what all of this shit is dependent upon. Where we'll see something like a lack of interest in Bitcoin mining because the transactions that are going through are facilitating billions of dollars worth of commerce, but they're not actually giving billions of dollars worth of commerce worth of fees back to the miners. And so this between this and the low per coin price that miners are getting back, they're simply going to move their hashing power to other networks where they can actually make money. Because they are in this to make money. If they don't make money commensurate with the sacrifice that they're making in their electricity, hardware, bandwidth, and so on, they are going to move to places where they are appreciated, where the transaction fees that they are making per block make it worth mining. And I really don't expect it to be too much longer. As more interest draws to crypto, people are going to look at the quote-unquote underpinnings. And when they realize that they themselves are the quote-unquote underpinnings of these networks, and what their expression of their personal interest actually looks like out in the real world, out into the real liquid economy, and they contrast that versus their participation anywhere else, they're going to look back on it and they're going to say, you know what? I can dedicate my hardware to this, and even though I'm getting a meager return right now, over time that meager return will be directly spendable as money in more and more places. And so this deletes all the necessary participants in legacy markets and KYC regulated markets. And it is simply going to circumvent them. It's going to go directly into physical goods, probably in a peer-to-peer, person-to-person barter type situation. But the medium of exchange itself will be some form of crypto, whether or not we're talking about Bitcoin or Bitcoin on a second layer through a third party, or through Ethereum or Ripple or Monero. We don't know. But I will tell you this. The grade, the deciding factor, is not going to be, is this entity compliant with the fucking NYDFS? Does this organization have the seal approval of FinCEN? These are going to be completely irrelevant. It's going to be, can I spend what I am receiving as money? Both, I'm receiving it as money. Can I use it again as money? And will it be worth, in relative terms, what it is worth right now? Will I be able to spend it back out into the market and get close to, if not more than, my initial investment in value back in, products, services, coins, and exchange. And the fun part about all of this is that the arbitrating entity in all of this commerce is going to be you. And I mean, right now people don't understand what to do with that level of power, because it's been denied them in legacy markets. You've never had this direct access to any market. You've been allowed to trade in the certificates that are evaluated by a whole bunch of third-party arbiters that you've never met. You have no idea how to judge their judging mechanism as far as the solvency of a particular entity. You don't know what metrics they're going by. At some point or another, that's just a bunch of series of question marks. And you've got to quote-unquote trust in that everybody told the truth. This is a AAA rated stock. It's projected, forecasted, earnings, reliably hit more times than not. As long as we're able to say that, we're safe with it, right? But again, in somewhere in that whole lineage between the issuance of the certificate and your purchase of it, there are a series of third party entities that are just a bunch of fucking question marks as far as you are concerned. Now, when you can contrast that versus a peer-to-peer network that you yourself can dedicate a node to, whether it be a miner or just a simple rebroadcasting node or something like that, or a validator. When you contrast it versus between those two levels of participation and interface and direct knowledge, I mean, eventually, which one are you going to be putting your trust in? Especially when the legacy markets, they seem to be deviating further and further from physical reality. We're not seeing a commensurate number of people being employed and a commensurate amount of physical, organic retail activity. They're not buying cars and houses at the same rate that they did before. And so that causes markets' confidence to kind of wane. I don't believe the energy that wants to make the money to buy the things has lost its desire to buy the things. It's just that for one reason or another, they are denied the money to buy the things, or participate at a level that's actually worth what they're, where they're being compensated in a direct proportion to their contribution. And the markets where that's true, they're simply going to be getting out of them and going to others, where their voice is felt, where their impact in the market is felt, is appreciated, is desired even. And there are several projects in crypto that, through their use or their design, kind of dissuade direct participation, and these ones are going to lose out over time. And I think at the moment, at least, Bitcoin's value proposition in direct terms kind of dissuades a lot of people from participating in it. It doesn't mean it's not valuable, and it doesn't mean that it won't be more valuable to the individual in the future, because that's also weighed against the US dollar and other fiat currencies. There are whole other mechanisms there going on. Again, back into that question mark, that I had a Trustville. Yeah, that's what I call it, Trustville. But that's neither here nor there. Direct energy interface, between, you're looking at how a BTU of electricity is dedicated to mining on the Monero network, and what the actual return is in monetary value for that effort. You can contrast that in your manufacturing processes and find out at any time, in real time, what your manufacturing process is, the products thereof, the things that you are manufacturing, what they are worth, at least to you, in relative terms to cryptocurrencies that are actively being mined right now. where you're able to evaluate their mining at, how much electricity is being dedicated to it. You're able to see it at any time, and you're able to say, this is how much value it generated for this period of time, and this is how much electricity was dedicated to it. Well, I dedicated this much electricity to my processes, and I got out this, and so in relative terms, it's worth roughly this in XMR or Zcash or Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash or Verge in real time. And again, people just have no idea what to do with that level of autonomy. That this bullshit autonomous zone, if they were really smart, they would adopt cryptocurrencies as their mediums of exchange and start talking with their local market around them. Go out with representatives out into the communities that surround them and say, hey, look, we're in this position now where we're able to provide a direct marketplace for you to sell your goods and wares and services for cryptocurrencies. That's perfectly legal and legitimate within our autonomous zone. And I believe a kind of order that they're not able to create from within would start to be would find a way to express itself. So these artists that are wanting to tag shit, they could be put to use making art. And so what? It's for a fucking corporate entity. Who gives a fuck? They're paying you for your work. They're paying you to produce art. Right? And that's really what you want to do. And for those things that you can create that later create royalties, you could again work out a mechanism by which you are rewarded some percentage of that royalty continuing forward. You're not just left assed out. They're walking along with your artwork and they're making money on products that they're tagging with your artwork, but they're not compensating you at all for it. That's one of the things that quote-unquote micropayments can be dedicated to. And, it's one of the things that gives value to things like Doge and smaller cap coins like that, is that, that because they're so tiny, their relative value doesn't change all that much, because you got to trade a shit ton of them to make money. And so, it's like when you have to move like 5 Bitcoin worth of them to make it worth doing, it kind of slows the up down on the market. And so, it makes those kind of coins desirable for that type of medium, because again, your relative value of the money you're receiving for royalties doesn't just jump up and down like Bitcoin does, unless of course you're exchanging it for Bitcoin and then US dollars, but that's all up to you. And again, it's that level of autonomy, that power, that makes cryptocurrencies so much better than any other fiat currency that we've had. It's because we can go back and we can look. When you're trying to sell us your coin for $250 a coin, we can go and we can look at your network and say, hey, you know what? There was just this one big ass spike of hash power on your network and there's like maybe 8 live nodes now. No, your fucking coin is not worth $250. We can look, we can check and verify, we can assess for ourselves, and we can determine for ourselves what our level of risk aversion is. This is a place where banks are completely disincentivized from being adventurous when valuing things, because they need to make a return on investment. They can think they're going to make a return on investment, but they need to. And so this causes them to be a little more cautious, a little more conservative about where they dedicate their funds. Well, maybe you have a whole different risk profile than they do. And so this money manager is making decisions for you that you personally would not make. You might have wanted to participate more in pot stocks, and they just don't invest in that type of thing in that particular brokerage. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And speaking of pot, I think it's time we burn some space grass here. Let's find some clutch, some space grass. I play the shit out of that song, but honestly, I think it's one of their better ones, and I was a bit disappointed when they didn't play it when I saw them live here in Eugene. Anyway, here it is, Space Grass by Clutch, here on Coin Metal. And that was Meshuggah with Ivory Tower. And I think we got at least enough time for just one more article. And I'm trying to figure out exactly which one would be the best to put out there. And I think this is kind of interesting because these guys, I don't think they understand exactly why DeFi is trying to exist. And I would posit it's because of the incursion that we've seen into the crypto space by various regulators. And so this is on Cointelegraph.com, and this is by Turner Wright, so yes, penis. Consensus starts compliance service focusing on DeFi. And this is authored June 9th, 2020. Joseph Lubin's firm Consensus is entering the compliance market with the launch of a service for DeFi projects on the Ethereum network. Ethereum co-founder Joseph Lubin's firm Consensus is releasing a compliance service to keep an eye out on transactions conducted by DeFi companies and exchanges trading tokens issued on Ethereum. According to a Bloomberg article published on June 8th, decentralized application development company Consensus announced it would release a service for decentralized finance projects and crypto exchanges to analyze trades for tokens based on the Ethereum network. Consensus service will be able to monitor user transactions of more than 280,000 coins issued on Ethereum, focusing on exchanges and DeFi companies. Quote, there are more and more people building decentralized apps that need this as a Lego piece, Consensus Lex Sokolin said. Quote, what we are trying to do is make activity on the decentralized financial infrastructure much more safe, transparent, and much easier to trace. Only focusing on Ethereum-issued tokens. Notably, Consensus doesn't seem to be entering the compliance market with tokens issued on the Bitcoin blockchain, but just ones on Ethereum. Cointelegraph reported in April that Coinbase-backed Securitize was expanding its compliance service utilizing smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. Yeah, but its demand for such has probably been nil. There's no interest in complying with people or other people's rules in DeFi. The whole point of DeFi is decentralized finance, i.e. completely unregulated, completely permissionless, away from this bullshit illusion that compliance with somebody else's regulatory regime will suddenly make your fucking shit any more or any less prone to issues than any other coin. It's fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. At some point or another, one of these entities is going to be fully regulated and fully regulatory compliant and all that other shit. And they're going to build their stuff on top of this idea that, say, Ethereum is going to go to Ethereum 2.0 and go to POS, right? They build all their infrastructure and shit like that, right? And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, Ethereum 2.0 doesn't happen. The miners come and pass the marker point when they're supposed to be changing over to POS, and they don't change over to POS, and all of a sudden their shit is completely non-compliant. Who's going to be redressed for that? That you tied up your Ethereum in their project, and you could have been trading it back and forth if you wanted to, but instead it was tied up in this, and so you were losing out on potential value because of what was going on with their project. And so yeah, I think that that in the long run, people are going to give up trying to establish metrics for that these projects can be judged by. That their actual performance, the desirability, the functionality of them will be the only thing that we really grade worth a shit. Everything else, whether or not FinCEN or NYDFS gives a shit about it or thinks it's wonderful, it's not going to fucking matter. And this is a fact that has not changed throughout the entire existence of cryptocurrencies. That there's always been two parties that are involved in crypto, or at least two. And I would consider these people that are involved in legacy networks and in legacy finance, and the people who are designing the software in these projects. They're two separate entities. You do have some entities on both sides, though, that are working with one another. You have the legacy financiers and whatnot. They're working on their side, but they're trying to incorporate crypto projects and services, and some of them are doing it right, and some of them are doing it wrong. It's not for us to decide. It is for the market to eventually determine who is doing it right. And I will argue again and again and again and again that those processes that involve the fewest third parties require the least amount of any kind of regulatory compliance or any kind of friction, any kind of taxation, anything like that. Those systems are the ones that are going to win out. And we can try and hand it off via projects like DeFi projects themselves. I think a lot of them are an expression of handing this responsibility off, trying to give away that control. But it'll always come back to you. Always. Anyway, it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe, do your homework, and watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And as far as our last dance is concerned, of course I haven't picked anything out. Kind of flying by the seat of my pants here. But I think this one will do. Textures, Oceans Collide, Last Dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night. If I can get this thing engaged. There we go.